So, you see the title, The Duality of Black Thought, Martin versus Malcolm. This is a very interesting topic because this is a representation of the duality of Black thought in my mind, in the way that I perceive this meeting of the minds. We as Black people, we are going to come together and we're going to have meetings of the minds. This is a representation of free thinking. So you're never going to come in contact with somebody that you 100% agree with. And even in that, we understand that even though we don't have the same core beliefs, we still have the same overall goal. And that goal is the furtherance and the betterment of our people and our community, right? So when we have these conversations and we agree to disagree or we leave things at a standstill, that means that that man has made his position and he stands on that. And the opposing side also as well. And so you move forward after that and you still continue the mission at hand. And this is why I bring up Martin and Malcolm. Had a real good conversation yesterday with Sears and Trey Corleone. Ronald Jones, you go trip, man. But it was a very stimulating conversation. We had some great points. We had some great thoughts to come out of that conversation. And it led me to think about Martin and Malcolm, because for years, people wanted Malcolm and Martin to debate each other. Malcolm, for a long time, wanted to debate Martin, but Martin was not willing to do that because he knew when him and Malcolm X would have come together, there were going to be some common ground made. And that white backing that Martin had to actually get things done would have fled. The same way that white people flee from Farrakhan today, and the way that they demonize him and they make him out to be this and that, is the exact same way that Malcolm was looked at back then. And so Martin knew this, and he moved strategically. Malcolm moved strategically as well, but he did not care as much about the white people being a part of the movement at first. So finally in 1964, this is after Malcolm had left NOI, and he began to develop his own concepts and ideas and things of that nature. And he went to a press conference that Martin Luther King was having on Capitol Hill. And so now we have the meeting of the minds, the duality of the Black thought in one room. And when that press conference was over, they had maybe 2-3 minute conversation with each other, and all eyes were on them. Everyone wanted to know what Martin was going to say to Malcolm. Everybody wanted to know what Malcolm was going to say to Martin. Well, first and foremost, they both had fundamental belief differences. And so that in itself was going to cause a wedge between these two men. They both understood this. And even though they had that conversation, they walked away with just as much respect for each other as they had beforehand, because it was always stated from both parties how much they respected the other person. And so in having these conversations, we're going to see the side of Black people who wants to be able to get along with everybody, who wants to create this world to where everybody can coexist together, because that's the principle of the biblical teachings that they were raised on. And so everybody who was raised under that fundamental belief system is going to operate and think within that fundamental belief system, and they're going to be with Martin. So on the other hand, you have a totally different fundamental belief system that goes basically against the ideology of the people that Martin was representing. And so you know, by any means necessary. We know the saying. We've made it a household phrase throughout the 90s and on up to now. So everyone knows that Malcolm's mindset was by any means necessary. Martin's wasn't. But Martin still respected Malcolm's position because he understood the need for both trains of thought. So when I look at it, man, I look at the duality of black thought. Someone made a very good point. There's a little bit of Martin in us. There's a little bit of Malcolm in us. And I relate to that very well. I identify with that very well because I've experienced both sides of the spectrum in my life. And so I could not discredit one or put one above the other. I can say that these brothers both have their correct points and these brothers both have their misinformation or whatever. But they still realized what the cause was that did not prevent them from fighting for the cause. And so that's where I'm taking this conversation is because, look, I'm not a person that's just going to go along with whatever somebody say if I have a fundamental belief that differs from that. And I have no qualms about making that be known. And I'll do it in such a way to where, you know, I don't burn any bridges with anybody. We have to have these conversations because to understand in this movement and what we're trying to do for our Black community, we're going to have to understand that there's going to be people who do not believe the same thing as us fundamentally, but we're still on the same path. We still have that same job to do. And regardless of how our differences are, that should not hinder us from the job at hand. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. And this is where a lot of people fall from each other and break apart. And that's the wrong mindset. I know that not everybody thinks exactly like me. I know that not everybody is going to operate and move the same way that I do. And that's okay. Just handle what you say you're going to handle. Do what you say you're going to do. Everything is cool. That's the mindset that I carry in anything that I do, whether I'm a leader, whether I'm a follower in a situation. I expect this out of every single person. I don't care what you believe. Are you working for the people? And so I know that these other people who don't believe like me are working for the people. I don't have no problem with them. I love them just the same. I respect them just the same. If anything, not more, for having a conversation with me. And so when me and Sis had a conversation yesterday, man, me, Sis, and Trey, shout out to those brothers. It was a great meeting of the minds. It was an opportunity for us to understand each other's belief systems. It was an opportunity for us to see where each man stood on certain issues. That was great for me. Now I understand that brother more. I understand Trey more. I have a different level of respect for him now because I can say that I've interacted with them in a way that familiarized me with them. And so I know more than just surface level things about these brothers now. This is how we bond. This is how we garner friendships. And this is how we come together with each other with an understanding. This is something that a lot of people are void of, and that's one of the main reasons why the Black community is in the situation that it's in. And so this was a great opportunity for us to demonstrate to everybody conflict resolution in the midst of a group who have the same common goal. And I appreciated that. It was necessary. It was a great demonstration of what all Black movements have been through. You don't think that there's been people inside of Martin's camp that said, well, maybe Malcolm is right. Maybe we do need to start punching back. Maybe we do need to start hitting back. They might not come out and say that because they know that the majority of the people in the group that they're in does not agree with that. They agree with the whole peaceful protest, turn the other cheek type conversation. So they're not going to really voice that, even though they should have the freedom to do so, but they're thinking it. I've always had this fight in me to where I didn't want to have to be validated by another ethnicity in order for me to feel accomplished. I've always had this mindset of no matter who looks down on me, that has no bearing on the light that shines in me and how I move about in this world and how I accomplish the things that I need to accomplish. How someone feels about me has no bearing on my goals and what I'm trying to get accomplished. So, that's neither here nor there for me. But, it is a point, and it's something that we have to contend with, because if a person is in a position of authority and they don't like you and they have a vendetta against you, then yeah, of course it's going to be harder for you to get certain things and harder for you to move certain places. That's cool. I understand we're in somebody else's country, and you know we're fighting for equality in a country that is not ours, in land that is not ours. We're fighting for the right to be treated as humans in a land where we were treated as less than human. We never came on this continent with a good mindset. We never came to this continent with anybody having good intentions towards us. The people who bought us from Africa, they did not have any good intentions towards us. The people who sold us into slavery to the Europeans did not have any good intentions for us, and those Europeans did not have any good intentions for us. So we came to this country forcibly, and we came to this country as just workers, expendable workers. And they've proven that over 400 years that a lot of those people see us as is expendable workers. Okay, I can give you that. But guess what? Those expendable workers always multiply everywhere we go. And I'm not just talking about in numbers. We do multiply in number, but we also multiply in capital gain. We also multiply in ingenuity. We also multiply in commerce. Whether they like it or not, this is our people. This is how we do. You cannot stop our growth. You cannot stop our evolving. You can stunt our growth. You can slow down our evolution, but you can't stop it. So regardless of what's done, regardless of how a person feels about you, they can only do so much to slow down your progression. And so I keep this dual thought in my mind as to where I would like to have peace with you, but if you just refuse to have peace with me, well, now I have to protect mine that I fought for and that I worked hard for. This is the dual thought of the black man, of the black mind. This is Martin and Malcolm meshed together. And this is where quite a few of our people stand right now. And so, as a free thinker, you're going to have those times where you're not going to agree with somebody wholeheartedly. And that's cool. If you don't have the same core beliefs, then you're absolutely not going to agree on every point. That's cool. So, you know, that's what it boils down to. I don't have the same core beliefs, but I still respect your belief system. I'm not going to sit here and say that, well, I got the truth. So anything that you say, I'm a disregard. Nah, I'm not that arrogant to think that I have all truth. And that was part of the conversation that we was having. Nobody has all truth. Everybody has a portion of the truth. The truth is scattered out in different belief systems and it's in pieces. And the only way that we will be able to get an entire whole truth is if we were to actually come together despite our um, differences of belief. Because a lot of the ideologies that exist within our belief systems are going to bump heads. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They bump heads and they stop talking with each other. They stop respecting each other. They stop growing and building with each other because now I have this against you. You don't believe exactly like me. But when you have a higher train of thoughts, you're not going to allow something like that to stop you from the main goal. And so this is why I enjoy the conversations with the free thinkers is because we have so many people over here who come from so many different backgrounds. Now, I I don't see it as being realistic for somebody to sum up however long they've been researching something. I don't expect them to sum all of that up in a couple of minutes and give me a compact summary of everything that they believe and why. That's impossible. It takes conversations and it takes multiple interactions with a person to understand how they got to their train of thought. And so this is what I'm something that I keep in mind when I have these conversations with people, that it's going to take more than one conversation and interaction for you to fully understand where a person is coming from. And I welcome those conversations all the time. This is what I do. This is what I do all the time. Sit around and have these conversations. And I definitely have people that challenge my views, and I'm absolutely okay with that, man. My young bucks come over, man. My son, his friends, whoever stops by, man, and we have these conversations all the time. And they have a lot of pushback on things that I say, and I have a lot of pushback on things that they say. But we still meet right here, and we continue these conversations. Now, Ronald Jones said something yesterday that I've heard a lot of people say. Said that you don't discuss politics and you don't discuss religion with people. Those are two things that can get a conversation heated really, really quick. But these are also things that'll give you a greater understanding and a greater respect for a person. And it lets you see where their mind is, where their thought process is, and what their attitude is towards the plight that we find ourselves in right now. Yeah, there's a lot of black leaders who came out during those times, and some would say that I stand with Malcolm, and some would say that I stand with Martin. But what was the overall goal? Black people. Martin's still a black man. Malcolm's still a black man. The NOI is still black people. Uh, the black church is still black people. So regardless, and I've always said that Malcolm represents Ishmael. Ishmael is the eldest son of one of our patriarchs. And Isaac is also the brother of Ishmael. They both come from the same father, Abraham. And so my Nation of Islam brothers, represented by Malcolm, and my Christian brothers, who are represented by Martin, even though they're separate, they're still brothers. That's Isaac and Ishmael. And so I'm always going to have a respect for my Islam brothers. I'm always going to have respect for my Hebrew Israelite brothers. I'm always going to have respect for anybody who has taken the time to invest into what they believe, because there's something in there that led them to believe that as strongly as they do and to walk in it. You're not going to walk in something, you're not going to walk something out that you don't believe in. I don't see people out here investing their time and their effort and their money into things that they don't believe in. And so if you believe in something wholeheartedly, and this is what motivates you to move forward, and this is what causes you to become the person that you are, then I respect that. And I rock with that, even though I don't fully agree with that. And that's okay. I wouldn't want to be in a group where people agreed on every single thing, because you would never have any innovations, you would never have any breakthroughs, or you would never have any, what's the word I'm looking for? You wouldn't have any new things being brought to the table, any new ideas being put out there that can lead to a solution. That's what this is all about, right? We having these conversations to find a solution to a common problem. Now, will we all come up with the same solution? No. There's so many people out here with different ideas on what we can do as a Black community to bring ourselves together as a whole. These things, you see the panels all the time. We had a panel that had T.I., Killer Mike, Candace Owens, and a few other notable Black people, and we see how that conversation went. And they went at Candace Owens hard, but Candace Owens stood her own. Now, do I agree with the fundamental beliefs of Candace Owens? Absolutely not. She spits out some statistics. She does have some good information. She is an informed person, but somewhere along the lines, I feel like she has a perspective on Black people, Black men in particular, that is based on her experiences or her disappointments with Black people in her childhood, in her youth. And as she came up, it developed into this attitude and this mindset to where she has this resentment towards her people. And I understand that 1,000,000,000%. It makes sense. If you're a young Black girl and you've always seen Black men doing disappointing things, doing things that are unlawful, doing things that are not conducive to a quality life or a decent life, then you're going to have this certain perception of Black men. This is where we get those women who will only date other ethnicities and they won't date Black guys. This is where we get the so-called Uncle Toms, the ones who prefer to act and conduct themselves in a European fashion. This mindset was developed through disappointment and heartache from their own people within their childhood. So you have some people who've grown up and they look at Black people and all they see is just some lost people who are not going to do anything but continue to fail and continue to drag each other down, which is warranted because this is something that we've done for over 400 years. So I don't see why a person can't develop that expectation from a people who have never disappointed on that aspect. But at the same time, you have people who have hope. You have people who see the silver lining in that cloud, and you have people who believe in prayer, the power of prayer. You have people who believe in the power of mankind to turn it around and get things right and to redeem themselves. But the thing is, the expectation is for now. Everybody is expecting this to happen now. But I take that back. Not everybody. There's a lot of people who wants to see that happen now. It may be another 20, 30 years from now when Black people really get it. When Black people really understand as a collective what has been done to us, but even more so what we need to do. Because like I stated before, we're waking up. We are waking up at this point. Black people are starting to see past the whole, all right, this was our thing in the 80s and the 90s when we had the whole Black Power movement and the Black Pride and all of that stuff. It was eradicated. Gangster music was pushed to eradicate that. NWA replaced Public Enemy. This all was during the same timeline because whenever crack hit the black community, NWA music came in, the gangster rap came in and replaced Public Enemy, and it set off a whole new mentality for the young black community, those up and coming ones who were going to be the future of the black movement. It was like, we can't do nothing with these freedom fighters. All we can do is lock them up. That's why they're still locked up to this day. That's why Larry Hoover's still locked up. That's why a lot of our freedom fighters are still locked up to this day, because they said, all right, we're going to stop it here, get rid of them, and we're going to raise up these new black children with this diseased, destructive mindset, not only through the gangster rap music, but we're going to destroy their minds with this crack cocaine by them using it and by them selling it, because the money that they're going to make off of selling this, they're going to fight each other tooth and nail. Turf fights, the turf wars, all of those things that came about that pitted us against each other during the whole crack epidemic. And then the music reinforcing all of that in our minds. This was done intentionally. This is not something that was just happenstance. So this was people coordinated together. They took finances and put that behind that movement so that they could get rid of all of the freedom fighters, so that they could get rid of the Malcolm X mindset and push the Martin mindset, because the Martin mindset was more passive and it was less dangerous to the white people of the United States. So in understanding certain things like this, I know that I gotta have a little bit of Martin and a little bit of Malcolm in me, because I can't just go all out and, fight fire with fire, because either way it goes, you're still gonna get burned. That's an understanding that I've come to in my life. I also understand that there's so many things that we as a people expect to see, but it may be a lifetime before we see it. How many people were expecting to see a black president before Obama? There's a lot. There was a lot of people. A lot of people thought that Jesse Jackson was going to be it. Yeah. A lot of people thought that Shirley Chisholm was going to be it. A lot of people thought that, who else was a prominent black man? Oh, rest in peace, Baba Dick Gregory. He ran for president. A lot of people didn't even know that. But there was a lot of black people who expected to see a black president way before the year 2000. And so when Obama came on the scene, you saw a whole lot of the older black people out there crying, and, because they didn't think that they were going to see that in their lifetime. But then you had some who thought it was going to be this guy, thought it was going to be that person. And then when it came out to be Obama, it was like they didn't know how to feel about it, because Obama's policies and what Obama was talking about didn't coincide with our black movement. But what Obama understood is the same thing that Martin Luther King understood. If I go in here and I be all pro-black this and my people that, I ain't gonna have a chance. Any bill that I sign is gonna be vetoed, because we do understand that the president don't have any power like that. He can sign an executive order. He can sign a bill or whatever, but that bill can be vetoed. It can be vetoed. It can be held up by Congress, all of that, and it'll never make it to the light of day. And so he understood this coming into office by the way that this country works, by the way that this government system works. If he would have came in on some black power type stuff, he would have never got anything accomplished. He was barely able to get anything accomplished when he was in there because of him being black. And you see that when he came out of office, Donald Trump did everything to try to erase anything about that black president. I don't say that Donald Trump was the worst president that the United States had, because he held up a mirror to the United States and he allowed the United States to see what they really were. And there was a whole lot of cowardice that was put on display for the American people. And these were the people that you say represent you, because each one of these congressmen and senators, they represent each state. These are state representatives. So they held up, Donald Trump held up a mirror to America and said, this is you. And that's what we needed, because now there's been new conversations that's being had. There's new concepts and ideas that are being formulated based off of that mirror being held up to the United States, because we didn't like what we saw. I know I didn't like what I saw. I saw more cowardice than I saw integrity on part of all of those people who allowed certain things to take place, or those people who flip-flop back and forth and was wishy-washy and straddled the fence and never stood firm on anything. A lot of that was brought out, and it needed to be in order for America to become stronger, because if we would have stayed on the path that we were on, we would absolutely be a third world country at this point and a laughingstock to the world. We were headed in that direction. Every single one of these presidents that we've had was necessary for the time that they were there. Whatever they did, good, bad, or ugly, it was necessary for what was needed at that time. Now, people who disagree with that, that's cool, but that's my stance on it, and I stand firm on what I believe. Yeah, I enjoy these types of conversations. I enjoy getting into the things that nobody wants to talk about, because that's where the answers lie. The answers lie in these hard questions, the hard conversations. And so I'm going to continue to have them. I'm never going to run away from hard conversations because it's uncomfortable. I like uncomfortable. I'm comfortable when I'm uncomfortable. That makes me work harder. That makes me think harder. That makes me go and research harder. And that makes me come off with more information and a better understanding of things. And so I appreciate it whenever people provoke thought within me. I salute everybody for that. And so, there's going to be many more conversations that are going to happen like that. I'm pretty sure this is not the last conversation that me and Sis are going to have. And I welcome any interactions with my brothers, especially somebody who does their due diligence to be informed of these things. This is how I learn. I don't think that I'm the end all be all to anything. I understand that there are people out here who has a wealth of knowledge, man. And I'm willing to soak all of that up. There's something that brother got that I need. There's something that I got that brother need. Iron sharpens iron, all of that good stuff. But a meeting of the minds is necessary. So when Martin was hesitating to have that meeting with Malcolm, what do you really think his biggest opposition was on that? I feel like Martin's biggest apprehension, I should say, his biggest apprehension, people alluded to, he didn't want to lose the backing of the white people. Okay, I get that, but there's something fundamental about that meeting that Martin knew. You know, I understand this brother feels this way. I understand the uh, attitude that his group, which he was a part of the Nation of Islam, but after Malcolm left the Nation of Islam, he began to see things from a different perspective. Because as to where he would never work with white people before, after his trip to Mecca, Malcolm saw white people who were worshiping and praising just like him. And so he had to recalibrate his thoughts and his perception of white people and them working with us in our cause. And so there was some evolution that took place in the mind of Malcolm. But there was also some evolution that took place in the mind of Martin. Because if you look at the latter days of Martin, see, people always focus on the "I Have a Dream" speech and all of the early stuff of Martin. Nobody really wants to talk about the days before or the months before Martin was murdered. Nobody wants to talk about that. Why? Because Martin was starting to wake up to some things. Martin was starting to understand that he was being used as a tool to appease the black people. The same thing that Jesse Jackson went on to become, the same thing that Reverend Al Sharpton went on to become, Martin saw that and he didn't want to become that. He didn't want to become a gatekeeper for the black people. And so when he started to push against that concept, that's when they were like, oh, he stopped drinking the Kool-Aid. Now we got to get rid of him. Because if we have Malcolm and Martin knowing what our real goal is, then we have a real problem on our hands. This is too much black power. And so they had to get rid of Martin because Martin was waking up to the play that was being played on him and the other black people who were in agreement with his mindset and the way that he did things. So, we're constantly waking up. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you don't just wake up and start running. You don't just wake up and automatically, instantly get on your job. When you wake up, you clear your mind, you stretch your body, you look around, you identify where you are, and then you begin to process what you need to do at that point. You begin to plan. Okay, I need to go wash my butt, brush my teeth, get my clothes on. I got this plan for today, this schedule for today. And then you begin to work out the process of what you need to do. And so when I say that our people are waking up, that does not mean that we're going to jump right into action, because some people are just waking up. They're still groggy. They're still looking around, realizing that they in their house and they need to get up and they need to start working within this plan that they have for that day. And this is what I attribute to the black people who are waking up now. You're going to wake up, you get the cobwebs out of your mind. Think about what you need to do and then start working towards that goal. And that's where we are now. So when you wake up, you're not going to just jump at it. I'm not expecting everybody to be on it like I'm on it, because some people are on it more than I'm on it. Some people are on it less than I'm on it. And I understand that you have to meet a person where they are. You can't expect everybody to be at the same place. It doesn't matter. It doesn't happen. And so as our black people grow, as our black people come together, as our black people gain these realizations, I salute to you. Thank you for that. As our black people come to these realizations, then we have to understand that this person is at this level, so they can only be utilized at this level of understanding. I'm not going to be angry with this person because they don't understand what I understand through my experiences. I'm just going to share those experiences with them in the hopes that they'll take on that information and it will help them to come up. Now, will they ever be at the same level as me? Yeah, if I stop and just don't do anything else, they can come up and surpass me. But as long as I'm continuing to research and I'm continuing to fight the battles and I'm continuing to have these conversations, I'm always going to be growing and I'm always going to be moving up. So, whatever level you're on as far as your understanding and your knowledge and your wisdom about life, I respect it 100%. We each have a measure of talent, we each have a gift. And if you figured out how to operate in your gift, I respect that. But if you haven't figured that out yet, I'm not going to hold that against you and say that you're stupid and that you don't know anything and that you don't want nothing. That's a very narrow minded way of looking at a person. And I'll never look at anybody like that because I believe wholeheartedly in redemption and overcoming and victory, no matter what the odds against you are. I've experienced it too many times in my own personal life. I've seen it in other people too many times throughout my life for me to not have that belief. And so I'm always going to believe in the redemption of man. The spirit of man is the strongest thing. That's the thing that nobody can figure into their equations a lot of times. And that's the one thing that has always thrown off an otherwise sound judgment against somebody is the spirit of man. We can never judge the spirit of man because we don't know what a person is going to do. They may rise up and deliver. They may lay down and cower and tuck their head in the sand. But it's all based on the spirit of that person and what's motivating them. So when you begin to see these things and understand these things from a larger view, hey, I'm not going to sit here and wait for people to catch up to me. I'm always going to be moving forward, but at the same time, I'm not going to forget that those people are back there. And I understand that these are the ones that's covering my rear. And these are the ones that's coming up behind me because at some point I was at their level of thought. At some point, I didn't have understanding just like they don't. At some point, there was certain information that I didn't have that has now, since then, changed my point of view in a lot of areas. So I understand the growth and the evolution that a lot of people are going to have to go through in order to get to a certain level of understanding. And they're still not going to be on my level because I'm constantly progressing. And we're supposed to be like that. Nobody's going to be on the same level. Nobody's going to, you show me a group of people that everybody wake up at the exactly same time and get up and start to do all the same stuff. You don't even get that in the household. My wife ain't up right now. My kids ain't up right now. I am. We wake up at different times based on the things that we have to do and based on the mandate that's in our life and the schedule that we live by. So waking up, that's a whole different matter. But I'm not worried at all because all throughout time we've had our doubts. All throughout time we've had our disappointments in Black people, and it's looked like, man, they're never gonna get it. Whenever the crack epidemic hit, that's exactly how a lot of people felt. Man, they're never gonna get it. Now look at them. Look at how destructive they are towards each other. Look at how they're just killing each other and just throwing each other away. They're never gonna get it. But now you're starting to see a generation that's a byproduct of that generation who got caught up in the crack epidemic and the gangster rap music. And that byproduct of that, those people are putting their foot down against a lot of this stuff. And I agree with that because a lot of the things that we've been fed, a lot of the things that we've accepted as our culture has been nothing but destruction to us. It was destruction wrapped in a candy wrapper. That's my analogy. And so whenever you unwrap a piece of candy and you figure out that it's not a Snickers candy bar, it's a piece of shit, are you still going to eat that? I hope not. But this is where we are as a people right now. Um, my expectations for the black movement is just to move forward. I don't have any expectations of world domination, or I don't have any expectations of us gaining equal footing in the United States, because the reality of it is this land was conquered by Europeans. And the conqueror of a land is never going to give the subordinates the same level of equality that they have. They're never going to give the subordinates the same level of privilege that they have in the country that they conquered. Never in history, you cannot name me one conqueror who was went and conquered an area and put those people above his people that he brought there. Never. Never happened. Never will happen. So now you have Putin. Vladimir Putin has taken over 15% of Ukraine. Do you really think that Vladimir Putin is going to give those Ukrainian people the same rights and privileges that the Russian people have? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so I have this understanding. I don't expect to ever see equality in the United States for black and brown people. That's just not going to happen. We did not conquer this land. All right. The Europeans came and conquered this land. And by doing so, they solidified themselves as the top dogs here. A lot of people don't like that truth. A lot of people don't like that reality, but it is a reality. The conqueror is never going to give you equal footing as him in a land that he conquered. And so for black people to think that that's going to take place, I don't know what to tell you, bro. We'll just agree to disagree on that, because I'm not going to hold that expectation and continue to get disappointed over something that's never going to be a reality. And that's just my belief on it. That's where I stand on that, based on what I just said. So, salute to everybody. Salute to all the free thinkers. Salute to people who are willing to have these tough conversations. Salute to people who can have these conversations and still have a measure of respect for each other after having these conversations, and realizing that we still have the same common cause, despite the fundamental differences in belief. It's Martin and Malcolm. I carry both in me. I have a little bit of Martin. I have a little bit of Malcolm. And I will demonstrate each one whenever it's necessary and whenever it's needed. Blessings to you, Jewel. Blessings to you. Who's that? Antoine Divine. Blessings to you. So I'm telling you, man, it's a very hard thing, but at the same time, it's great for us. These conversations are great for us. They're needed. They're the elephants in the room that we always dance around. And I'll never not talk about politics. I'll never not talk about religion, because we need to get this out here. We need to get this understanding amongst each other as people, so that we can quit holding these things against us and using them as excuses for why we don't want to come together as a people. because that's a cop out. Oh, you don't believe the same thing that I do, so we can't work together. Says who? You go to a job every single day where you work with people who do not believe like you because y'all have a common goal to make whatever that product is, whatever your job is, whatever your product or your service is, you and those people come together in that area of operation in order for the common goal to get that product or that service out to the people so that you can live a quality life. So despite your separate beliefs and all of that, y'all still gonna come in there and get on that assembly line, and you're gonna put your part on that, and you're gonna put your part on that, and send it on down the line so that this thing can be sent out. That's the same thing with our movement. That's the same thing with our mindset. That's the same thing with the Black cause. We're all coming in on this assembly line, and we're putting our part on it, and we're pushing it on down the assembly line for it to be completed and sent out. Despite how I feel about this person, despite what that person believes, none of that holds any bearing because we have a bigger issue at hand that we're dealing with. And that's the way I see things. That's the way I'm gonna always see things. And so that gives me the leeway to not hold anything against anybody and to be able to respect and understand where somebody else is coming from. So once again, salute to Sears. That was a great conversation, man. Salute to Trey Coleon. Salute to everybody that was in the chat. Salute to Ronald Jones for coming in and being the comic relief that was necessary in a conversation that was getting pretty heated because both of our voice levels it went up to that level and our energy was way up. And I believe that Ronald Jones saw that and he intervened and began that whole trolling thing to bring things back to a calm level. And I appreciate that, bro. I really appreciate that. You saw a need and you moved forth and you initiated something to de-escalate that. That's what I call, just being on your square, bro. You really was being on your square, man. And I appreciate that so much, man. Get in this live chat. Yeah, it was dope. Grand rising to you, Joe. It was dope. It was so dope. I have conversations like this. I say probably about every 3 to 6 months, I'll have a conversation of this nature. And I always grow from it because anything that is said to me that I've never heard before or I don't have a clear understanding on, I'm going to go and research it. I'm going to go and pull it up because I want to gain understanding. I'm solution oriented in all that I do. All of these conversations that I have with people, my ultimate goal is to come to a solution. I'm not trying to win no arguments. That is never what it's about. It's about trying to find a solution. And so after this done, why y'all think I'm still up now? It's 3, I'm in here in Texas. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why y'all think I'm still up? Because I've been researching. I've been studying. I've been digging through the annals. And, one thing, I want to confirm some things that I said. And then 2, I want to check in and validate some things that I heard, which I've done so far. And that's why I have the utmost respect for Sis. That's why I have the utmost respect for Trey Coleon. Because these brothers put me up on some things that I didn't know. And that's why the iron sharpened iron comes into play. So they sharpened me, and I appreciate those brothers for sharpening me. That's just why I hold the free thinkers in such high regard. Reverend Tony would have never introduced me to the people that he introduced me to if he didn't think that we were going to benefit for having these interactions with each other. And so I benefit greatly from this. I'm going to be a much stronger person. I'm going to be a much more informed person now. But if I just sit here and just spout off what I think and never get any pushback and never get any feedback from anybody, what good is that doing anybody? Because I don't know everything. I damn sure don't know everything. I don't know anything, as a matter of fact. I strongly believe a lot of things. I've read a lot of information and I've been down a lot of rabbit holes to allude to something, but I don't know nothing 100% because I wasn't there as a firsthand witness to say, yes, that absolutely happened the way that it was portrayed. If I don't have that firsthand account, that first eyewitness account, I can't say that I know anything. And so I strongly believe a lot of things. So, these brothers are just furthering my belief system. They're strengthening my belief system. They're giving me alternative options for my belief system. And so that's why I'm very open to people's thoughts. I'm very open to ideas. I'm very open to different concepts, even if they're contrary to mine. It's welcome. Yeah, man, that's all I really wanted to get on here and say this morning because I think it needed to be said. A lot of times we have these conversations and we'll end those conversations and we'll still have some things that's mulling around in our head and in our hearts that we need to get out and we need to flush it out, because if not, we'll dwell on those things and those things will begin to become something that they don't need to become. And so, yeah, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I try to be as transparent as I possibly can because I don't want anybody to think I'm on no sucker shit. I ain't never came to be on those. If I'm going to be on some sucker shit, then I might as well stay to myself. In fact, I'm the type of person, whenever I start feeling depressed or I start feeling like, my mindset ain't right today, I try to separate myself from people so that they don't become a victim of my bad attitude in that moment and they be the recipient of unwarranted venom. These are things that I'm very mindful of whenever I interact and whenever I choose not to interact. And so once again, I thank those brothers. I thank everybody who pours into me. Pause. Yeah, man, I appreciate y'all coming in this morning. Was anybody there? Was any of y'all there and overheard that conversation that we was having? Because, it was a two-sided thing. There were some people who agreed with what Sis was saying. There were some people who agreed with what I was saying. There were some people who saw where both of us was coming from because, like Trey Corleone explained, I think we were both saying basically the same thing. It was just semantics, and that happens a lot of times whenever whenever you have meetings of the minds. You have two people who are going to the same place, they just have different approaches getting there. And they have different plans on how to get there. And so they're going to argue over their plan to get there. Both of them plan may be right, and both of their plan is going to get them to that point. But because they don't have the same plan, it could cause, disagreement, stuff like that. But like I said, we're building and we're growing. We have a common goal, and that's the most important thing. So I can bypass any religious, any cultural, ethnic beliefs, any of those beliefs that differs from other people. So be it. I still love you. I still respect you. And it's always going to be that. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that, man. That's something that's been on my heart. That's something that's been in my mind to do. And so I follow what my mind and my heart tells me to do. So this is your boy D-Mac, man. I appreciate y'all for coming on and listening to me go on for this last 40 minutes or so. But like I said, it's something that I was thinking about. It's something that's been on my heart, and I had to definitely put it out there. So y'all know what I say, man. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word can always heal you. I'm out.